Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my third live stream about Starry Nights, my book that just came out in mid-May. But before we begin, I've got a little something I put together for you. So I'm going to play this before we start our journey today. I will never forget the first time I witnessed a night sky free from light pollution. It was my inaugural trip to Hawaii, where I was participating in an intensive 3 week college course that focused on the geological evolution of the Hawaiian Islands. One evening, a few classmates and I ventured to the Mauna Kea Visitor Information Station, and that night changed my life forever. I was awestruck by the sheer number of stars visible, and I found myself genuinely perplexed by the hazy band stretching across the sky. It was my first glimpse of the Milky Way galaxy. At that moment, I realized I would return to this enchanting place again and again. Little did I know that in years to come, I would end up living in Hawaii, where I would teach and immerse myself in the sciences I cherish: astronomy, biology, marine science, and volcanology. It was in this paradise that I developed my skills as a stargazer. During my 12 years in Hawaii, beneath exceptionally dark skies, I began to recognize the constellations and learned when they would be visible throughout the year. I spent countless nights outside my home, laying on blankets with my daughters, marveling at the stunning night sky. When my girls drifted off to sleep, I would pull out my field guide to identify what I was seeing. One of my favorite pastimes was using my binoculars to explore seemingly empty patches of sky, only to uncover hidden treasures of distant starlight. As an educator and enthusiastic stargazer, I believe everyone should have the opportunity to witness the night sky free from artificial light. However, as time goes on, experiencing a truly dark sky has become increasingly challenging for most people. A significant portion of the world's population resides in urban and suburban areas, which hinders their ability to see what our ancient ancestors once viewed. Yet, even in places plagued by light pollution, some stars remain visible. It was these brightest stars that first captured my interest. What are these stars like? Are they a part of binary systems? Do they have planets orbiting them? Why do they shine so brightly? Even after writing this book, I still find myself filled with questions. My goal in writing this book was to highlight the celestial systems that are brightest in our sky. I wanted to spotlight not only the most brilliant stars, but also the intricate systems that characterize these celestial bodies. I encourage you to begin with the basics of stargazing to guide you through the process of having enjoyable and rewarding stargazing sessions. In the subsequent chapters, I delve into the life cycle of a star and how stars are classified. Understanding this information will enhance your knowledge of the 25 brightest stars and reveal their similarities and differences with our Sun and one another. Finally, we'll examine some truly unique stars that exist in our universe and notable star clusters that we can see with the unaided eye. I also wanted to make the night sky more approachable for those who might feel intimidated by the complexities of astronomy. By highlighting the brightest and most recognizable celestial objects, my goal is to create an entry point for beginner stargazers to connect with the universe. I believe that understanding these key systems, readers will gain confidence to venture outside, look up, and appreciate the beauty that has inspired humanity for centuries. Ultimately, my hope is that this book not only serves as a guide to the brightest points of light in our night sky, but also ignites a passion for exploration and a deeper appreciation for the wonder of the cosmos. All right. That's a trailer I put together of the preface I wrote for this book, kind of explaining why I wrote this book and why it's important to me. And as we move forward in this presentation, I will be talking to you guys about how to find these stars and then some really great resources that you can use as you move forward trying to find these stars. Now, I have to be honest that there are times where you're not going to see all the stars at once. There are times where you might be in areas of lots of light pollution, but yeah, it is a journey of learning how to find these different stars and what the tricks are of the trade. But before I get started, maybe you guys can let me know in the chat box, in your comments, what kinds of things do you want to get out of today? Because today's a little different than the last live streams. Today, I'm really giving you a lesson as if you guys were my students and you were in my classroom, whether it be, in the traditional classroom or an online classroom. So, chat to me, give me a little bit in the chat box. Let me know what is it that you kind of want to go over today. Is there anything specific that you are interested in learning? And I'm seeing everybody shout out to me. So, hello, welcome, and I'm really, really happy you are here. And for the moment, I'm going to just switch up my screen to get us ready for the next presentation that I have for you. So give me just a moment as I switch. First time here. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulties trying to pull up my presentation. So hopefully I can solve this in just a bit. I might just end up sharing my screen. That's where I'm going. My file today is such a huge file that hasn't been able to upload. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. So let me arrange that with you guys real quick. This is what it's like being an online teacher, is that you always have a backup plan for everything. And that's I always have a plan B and a plan C as a teacher. And it's funny because, like, as you know, I know I'm a YouTuber and this is kind of my side gig that I do, but my primary role is a secondary teacher, a public school teacher. So I'm always working with how to make that work. All right. So I think I figured this out. I'm going to share my screen and I'm just going to do the entire screen. I haven't done it like this. Okay. And there it is. Okay, so if you guys are typing in the comments, I am going to wait to have you guys talk with me. I'll address your comments in a little bit, but I'm just getting my picture slide ready. Okay. So this, as I was arranging this presentation, it was something that was definitely a little difficult to do because you can't ever find one picture that has all 25 brightest stars in them. It's just not possible because of the seasonal aspect of when we're able to find these stars. But this is the picture I'm going to start with because it's the one in which you can see the most amount of stars out of any picture that I've hidden. So as you guys are looking at this, I'm wondering if you notice any constellations. For me, there's one in particular that really stands out right in the Milky Way. And then can you also notice the brightest star out of all of them? Because if you can notice that one, then you at least know you're looking at Sirius. Okay. And from the first brightest star, are you able to notice the second brightest star? And if you can, you're looking at Canopus. All right. So I'm going to point out a few things to you here. This right here is where Sirius is, the brightest star in the night sky. And Sirius is so bright for a couple of reasons. One, it's really close to us. It's only 8 light years away right here. And it's brighter than our own sun. It's classified as an A-type star, so it's larger than our own sun, and it has white light that comes from it. So that is Sirius right here. The second brightest star is right there. That's Canopus. And this is one that I've seen when I used to live in Hawaii, but it would be one that, like, I noticed it, but for a long time, I didn't know what I was looking at. And this is one that was like really close to the horizon because the latitude in Hawaii is what where I lived was 19 degrees north. So I was able to see it, but definitely not the whole constellation. It was just really, really low on the horizon. And because of that, it always looked like it was changing colors. And I know that it wasn't truly changing colors. It was just the atmospheric disturbance of all the gases that are moving around in the atmosphere. That's why sometimes stars twinkle, is because it's the atmosphere, that's the gases inside the atmosphere that are moving around. So those are the two that really stand out to me. And then the other ones is this region right here. Okay, so this constellation right here, this is called Crux, the Southern Cross. And in most of the United States, which is where a majority of the population, or not population of the world, that's the majority of my subscribers come from the United States. But a lot of people, if you're living in the US, you're usually not going to see the Southern Cross unless you're at 23 degrees latitude or lower. That's the way you can see the Southern Cross right here. And then these two stars are Alpha Centauri and Beta Centauri. And Alpha Centauri is very, very well known to many in the astronomy community because it is our closest star system. It's only 4-ish light years away. So that's the reason it's so close to us. And it's actually a system that's kind of similar to ours in the fact that it's a triple star system right here, but two of the three stars are sun-like stars, and then it has another red dwarf. So I'm gonna scroll to the next slide so you can see all these stars that I'm pointing out that are listed in the book that I talk about. Okay, but I think most people will probably want the labels on them so they know what they're looking at. Okay, so I've already mentioned Sirius, I've mentioned Canopus, and I've mentioned the stars in the Southern Cross. And three of the stars in the Southern Cross are in the top 25 brightest stars. And some of these were challenging. Like Acrux is a system that was really difficult to interpret because there's not a lot we know about it. But Alpha Centauri is here, and Beta Centauri, which is also known as Hadar. And then some of the other constellations we have here, or I'm sorry, stars, are Antares over on the side, right there. And then Shella, which is part of kind of like the stinger of Scorpius. And Scorpius is personally one of my favorite constellations because it's like one of the few that looks like what it's supposed to look like. So if I were to point out Scorpius, it's right here. And then you would work your way down and it loops into the hook. Okay. There's many Polynesian stories about this constellation. It's known as Maui's hook that he used to pull out the Hawaiian Islands from the ocean as a demigod. But you can see that Antares has two of the brightest stars in the night sky. And again, my book focuses on the top 25. But I'm going to bounce over back to Sirius right here. So here is Sirius, the brightest star of the night sky. One of the things I discovered as I was researching this book is that Canis Major, which is what Sirius is in, is one of it's just one of the two brightest stars that are in the top 25. Adhara is actually in that top 25, and I never really heard of it before. But I've seen it plenty of times because it's right next to Sirius. But it kind of is outshined by Sirius, being that, you know, Sirius is always going to be the brightest one. So when you compare it to this one, it doesn't look that bright. Some other stars we're looking at here are Fomolo. This is a triple star system, and it's called the loneliest star because it's really one of the only bright stars in that area of the sky. And it's typically seen in the autumn time in the northern hemisphere. So majority of my subscribers are people that live in the northern hemisphere, but I don't want to ever ignore the people that live in the southern hemisphere because you obviously see these constellations as well, but they look different to you and you can see them during different times. Okay. So this again is a great shot that I would use to just teach how to find everything and where things are in relation to each other. And I think, my moderator is telling me you can't see my cursor, which is not great because I'm pointing everything out for you. So we'll move on to the next constellation here and see if you can figure out what we are looking at. And I love this shot mostly because the Milky Way is really gorgeous. And you did already see this constellation once, and it is Scorpius. So are you able to see what Scorpius looks like here? First, you want to look for the bright reddish orange star. That's the brightest one towards the right side of this photograph. Okay. And there is where you're going to find Antares. So this is where Antares is. Okay. And then the other bright star, I have them all pointed out for you here. Because you do have certain people that does some of I always use this term that one of my students coined. Anytime I would teach constellations, and that's something I teach every year because it's a way to tell time. It's a way to tell the different seasons. And here, what we would see, let's see, might be able. Okay, can I draw out here? Nope, doesn't let me. But anyway, I lost my train of thought, what I was saying. But he was saying he was star blind. But I would always teach the constellations as a way to tell time. And the way to tell time is one of the reasons why astronomy is one of the oldest sciences that are out there, because we used it to determine the different seasons. And then different cultures throughout the world would always reference these seasons through stories and different morality lessons that would come. And that's where ancient mythologies come within the constellations. So here is Scorpius with Antares and Shaula. All right. So if I were to I'm going to try to, can I draw on this picture? I just know my moderator is telling me you can't see my cursor. So the way to point some of this stuff out is to draw. So yeah, there it is. There. That's great. But there, yeah, that's kind of where, and then Scorpius dips below like this. So that's kind of what it looks like right there. All right, so let's keep moving on. I'm just kind of giving you a preview for all of these. And then I'm going to go over some different tools that you can use. So this constellation is one that many people know. It's probably one of the most recognizable constellations out there, and if not the most recognizable. But this one here is Orion, and this is the one I decided I really needed this constellation on the cover of my book, because this is what brings me the most views. It's the thing that everybody can see, and you can kind of see how it would look like a human figure. Okay, so if I were to trace out what Orion would look like. Oh, I like this drawing. It even draws straight lines for me. Back when I started this business, nothing ever drew straight lines, just like how I'm doing this here. Okay, so that's the basic pattern of Orion. I did accidentally cover, there we go. That is the 3 belt stars, which right here, if I were to circle. And the belt stars are really important. I don't talk about them at all in the book, but they're really important because you can use them as a guide to help you find other constellations like this. Okay. So if you use the belt stars to aim towards this brightest star, that's Sirius. And again, Sirius is that brightest star. It's a binary star system where the main star is bigger than our own sun, but around that star is also another white dwarf star. Not that we could see that with our unaided eye, but astronomers have detected it by studying the light coming from this star. And then here, this right here is Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the red eye of the bull, and you can sort of see the face of the bull right here. It kind of makes a V-shaped face, and this is actually, going to circle. This is actually a star cluster called Hyades. It's really well known. It's very close to us at only 150 light years away. But yeah, this is where Aldebaran is. But the brightest stars in Orion are here and here. Okay, this one is called Rigel. Okay, and Rigel is a fascinating system. I do have a video on that. It's a four-star system, but the main star we're looking at is a blue supergiant that is expected to become a supernova. It's unclear as to when these things will happen and if it will happen in our lifetime, but if it would explode and into a supernova, that would be really something to see from our perspective. And then the other star here, this is Betelgeuse. Okay, or Betelgeuse. That's how I learned how to say it. I get a lot of slack on my channel for that about how I pronounce these. But these are all Arabic names, and the reality is names have been warped over time. So I guess my point is there's multiple ways to pronounce this star. Uh, Betelgeuse, Betelgeuse. I can't really see calling it Betelgeuse because that's not how you would pronounce it with just one E in English. But again, in different cultures, we all pronounce it differently. But I don't want to focus so much on the pronunciation of the star, but really what kind of star it is. And it's a red supergiant. It does not have a companion from which we can detect at this time. But what the interesting thing about this star is that its brightness has dimmed in the past, and a lot. In 2019, there was it was called the Great Dimming of Betelgeuse, and that is when it wasn't as bright as it used to be. And there's a couple different theories on why this is that I talk about in the book, but it's possible that this may go supernova. Perhaps it's already gone supernova, but the light hasn't reached us yet. And that's something to acknowledge that anytime we are looking in the night sky, we are looking into the past because it takes time for light from these distant stars to reach us. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot to explore this coming winter, which is what 3 seasons away from now. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos on this constellation because there's a lot to dig through here. For example, this is the Great Orion Nebula right there. Okay. And then over here, this is where the Horsehead Nebula is, which is one of my favorite ones because just its resemblance to a horse is uncanny, and it's not something you can see necessarily with the naked eye. So, yeah, so we've got, how many stars have we got in this one? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of the 25 brightest stars. And like I said, you're never going to quite get them all in one shot, but I'll show you how you can get them all in one shot using a program, even if that sometimes I think, it's not bad to use programs, but you should be able, I really believe you should be able to go outside and know what you see when you look up. That's something humans have always known, but it's something we're forgetting because of light pollution, because we are not able to see these things like our ancient ancestors used to. So I'm hoping to kind of bring a little bit more awareness with that to the book. All right, so we're going to keep going. Here's where I labeled things, but we'll go to the next star. So let's get some practice. Can you, first of all, find Orion in this photo? Okay. And then from there, can you find Aldebaran, the eye of the bull? And then are you able to find some of the other brightest stars? So I'm going to go through, let's pick a different color just because I can. And we'll circle some of the bright ones. So that's Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. This is Rigel. Okay, here's a new one. This one is Procyon or Procyon. I've heard it pronounced multiple ways, and ultimately I think star names are really pronounced based upon where you come from and how you grew up learning what they sound like and what your language background is as well. For me, language studies is not my background. I'm a scientist. My degrees are in biology and geology. So when it comes to this language stuff, I do struggle. I try to talk with experts to learn what are the proper ways and just look at pronunciation guides. But this one, Procyon, uh, let's erase that. I love how this is making strange things. Okay, so Procyon, this is how I would teach if I were online, is writing it freely like this. And I never get to do this, so it's kind of cool. But Procyon is a binary star system, just like Sirius. And Sirius is not located in this constellation, but Sirius is a part of Canis Major. Procyon is a part of Canis Minor. And Canis Minor is easy to find because it's only 2 stars. And what you do is you use the shoulder of Orion to find Procyon. That's how that works. So Procyon is an easy star to find. The other ones we're going to look at here. Okay, this is Pollux. Okay, one. I'm just laughing because this program is not cooperating with me. It's just doing whatever it feels like doing. I guess I should probably be writing text. But what's the reason I'm sharing my screen is my presentation refused to upload today naturally, just at the end of my school year when, this typical thing happens. So this is Pollux. I'm trying to write the name here. Pollux. Okay, it's an orange giant star. And it's the brighter of the 2 within Gemini. And then the other star we're looking at right here, this is Castor. Okay, Castor. I don't know why this is making shapes. So maybe I should pause a bit and just get the text thing going. Tools, window. This is funny because I would never teach online like this, but this is what it's giving me. And in fact, I don't know why I'm writing on this when I do have it here. Geez, this is what happens. Sometimes you're a little thrown off. So we'll stick with this. So we've got Procyon here. We've got Pollux. That is here. Okay. The brighter part of Gemini, and then Castor. So Pollux is a single star system, and it's an orange giant star. So it's towards the end of its life. But Castor is really interesting and probably one of my favorite ones to write and have Aaron, who was my illustrator, do the artwork for. Castor is a 6-star system composed of 3 binary pairs. So this one, it's just fascinating to learn about and how these 6 stars are all going around each other. And I do think this is our only 6-star system in the book. Okay. But you want to use Orion to help you find Gemini. And the way to do that is you draw an imaginary line from Rigel to Betelgeuse, and it will aim you towards Gemini. And Gemini is this whole area right here. Actually, that's a little big. Let's be a little more accurate with that. So Gemini is right there. And then the final star I didn't talk about is Capella. And Capella is part of a constellation called Auriga. He's known as the Charioteer. And the way I know him is that he looks like a pentagon in the sky. Although that's not the official star pattern, that's what it looks like to me. And this is how I first learned it. And that's, what the constellations look like or something that has always challenged me through this channel is like, why do they always look so different depending on the source that you consult? I've just come to accept it is what it is. I tend to stick with the constellation patterns from the International Astronomical Union, which is what astronomers refer to. So if it varies from that, then that's fine. And the International Astronomical Union also acknowledges that there can be many patterns for this, and that's okay. But Capella is a 4-star system. I do have a video on this star system already, but it consists of 2 star-like or sun-like stars as well as 2 red dwarfs. But this is all visible in the winter months in the northern hemisphere. This is hilarious how every time I write, it just changes whatever I am into arrows or shapes. This is entertaining for me. I hope it's entertaining for you. But In the winter sky is when you can see Capella, Aldebaran, Rigel, Procyon, Pollux, and Castor, and they make something called the winter triangle. I can't quite trace out the winter, or not the winter triangle, the winter hexagon. Can't quite trace that out here because we don't have all the stars, but I probably do have it on a later slide, which gets me to this one. So this picture does not quite show the winter hexagon, but you can tell just looking at this photo, it's a prolonged exposure, which means the camera was following the constellation through the sky, and we were able to capture as much light as possible coming from these stars. That's why they stand out so much. And that's why I use pictures like this when I try to teach constellations. Even though it doesn't really look like this in the sky, the stars are not as round like this. It's not as vivid and bright. Same with the Milky Way in the background, but it's a great teaching tool for you to use. So as you're looking at this, are you able to find the different bright stars? For me, this one is what's standing out. This is Capella, part of Auriga, the one we just talked about in the last picture. We have Aldebaran right here in Taurus. We have Betelgeuse, we have Rigel, we have Pollux, and then we have Castor. So there's a lot going on here. And the other bright stars that you're seeing more in the center are parts of the different types of constellations that you're seeing, but these are the main bright ones. So a combination of both single star systems, but also multi-star systems. And that's what I really wanted to highlight in this book, for sure. So hopefully if I were to take all that off, are you able to see these stars and the possible constellations that are connected to them? All right, so I'm gonna, just looking at our time, I still have a few more slides left. Okay, so this one, as you're taking a look at this, the first thing I want you to try to notice is the Big Dipper, and the Big Dipper is towards the right side of the photo. If you can find the Big Dipper, use the handle of the dipper to Arcturus. And then from Arcturus, you need to speed to Spica or spike to Spica. I've heard both types of mnemonic devices to help you. So if you can figure that out, if you can find the Big Dipper, which is right here, okay, you want to arc to Arcturus, which is a bright star here, and then you speed on to Spica right there. Okay. And Arcturus and Spica are stars that are visible right now in the springtime in the northern hemisphere. Arcturus is an orange giant star, so a single star system towards the end of its life. It's run out of fuel and it's starting to expand, and it's much, much larger than our sun, which is the reason that it's bright. And that's something I'm always trying to teach throughout this book, is that these stars are either bright for one of two reasons. One, it's close to us, or two, it's really, really big. It's size, but each of these stars are in different phases of their life cycle. And that's something I go through in the book as well, which is not something I've really taught on my channel before, probably because I know the content is out there already. So why teach info that's already out there? But in some of the courses that I sell online, I do go into depth about the life cycle of a star. And that's something I eventually will do on my channel. It's just there's so many good resources out there already. But I'll always put my own spin on things as I go through and teach things. So if I were to scroll down and just point out those stars again. Okay. So you use the handle of the Big Dipper to Arcturus, and then you speed to Spica. Some other constellations that are here, I'll draw some of these out. So this is Boötes. Okay, right there. And then you have Corona Borealis, which makes like a little smile right there, or a sideways C, as sometimes I like to think of it. And then Hercules is kind of cut off. You can see a part of the keystone of Hercules. Here's one of its arms. Here's part of its leg, but it's off the screen. Okay. And then over here is Ophiuchus, but that's definitely cut off the screen as well. You can also find the Little Dipper. Okay. Use the handle, or not the handle, the pointer stars to point you towards the North Star. And I'll try to point out the Little Dipper. It is cut off a little bit here. But yeah, so these are visible now. You can go outside, and the Big Dipper is visible pretty much all year round if you live in the Northern Hemisphere. But Arcturus is not always visible. And ultimately, what you see in the sky is dependent on what your latitude is. What I see when I'm in Pennsylvania is very different than what I see in Hawaii when I live there. So that's something you have to kind of, as you watch my videos, take it with a grain of salt, because it may look a little different. But we're coming to the end of my presentation soon, and I'm going to show you some resources that you can use to help you find your way. And the online resources are really good. When I started this game of teaching the constellations online, I don't think the resources were as good, but 10 years later, they're really awesome now. So, all right, on to the next constellation. This is one that many may not have seen if you don't live in the Southern Hemisphere, and this is known as the Southern Cross. And what's really interesting about the Southern Cross is it has three bright stars out of the 25 that I wrote about. And while two of them are really easy to write about, Gay Crux and Mimosa, A Crux was not. That is the very last thing I ever wrote about this book, or in this book, because it was such a challenge, because we don't have great data on it. So, and I talk a little bit about this. I do see that there are some questions. I will get to address some of your questions soon. But yeah, but if we, so when I lived in Hawaii, this is what the Southern Cross looks like. And I I was looking at it for ages and didn't even realize what I was looking at, because I wasn't really learning that portion of the sky. It was very low in the horizon living in Hawaii, but you could definitely see it in the springtime. So, and I believe there's parts in the Southern Hemisphere where you're seeing this all year round. But again, that's one of the reasons I don't want to say avoided teaching the Southern constellations, but I've held back on teaching them, because I've never quite been comfortable teaching about things I haven't really seen, or like I'm an expert at. Like, yeah, I definitely know that's there, but I'll get there. That's a long-term goal with me on this channel, is being able to live in the Southern Hemisphere and be able to see these things and actually speak with authenticity about them, not just staring at pictures, which is what I do a lot for this channel, is looking at pictures, finding video, and trying to adapt them to my instruction. But so Gay Crux is one of the brightest stars. It's kind of the top of the cross. You have Mimosa right here, which is Beta, the beta star of this constellation, which is the second brightest. And then you have A Crux right here. So when you're looking at, this is also a very small constellation as well, but it's very distinctive. But there's other patterns out there and other asterisms that do look like the Southern Cross, which can be easily mistaken about this. And I have made a video out there. I actually think it's like a YouTube short or a TikTok about it, about how there's the false cross and other things that look like this as well. All right, we're coming to the end of our presentation. I'm surprised at how long this is going for with me teaching you these, but this is a star that's probably in the book I wrote about the most, because I had the most amount of information about it. And this is the star Vega. Vega is very close to us, only 26 light years away. And the first time, I do definitely have a video on this. And the first time I ever heard about Vega, or sometimes pronounced Vega, is in the book. Well, actually, the movie Contact. I saw the movie before I read the book, but then I ended up reading the book after, and they're quite different, very different. But I liked both of them equally, which is surprising for me. I usually always prefer the book over the movie. I feel like movies usually can't do the book justice. They leave out too much. But um, the first time I ever heard about Vega was in from Carl Sagan's Contact, and this is one of the easiest stars to me to find. I live in Pennsylvania and the United States, and for me, it's like a zenith star for me. It goes right overhead all summer. It's very bright and it's easy to see. And I learned a lot about this star as I went through this program called NITARP, which stands for NASA IPAC Teacher Archive Research Program, where I was working with astronomers at Caltech in California, and they would use archive data from the Spitzer Space Telescope to, answer research questions. And Vega, I learned, is like a standard candle for many other stars. It's like our um, magnitude 0. That's what we use for Vega. And I really go in depth about not only the characteristics of this star, but also some of the mythologies behind it, which I love. And I may not be an expert in the mythologies, but I do love to share about them. But Vega is one of those ones that's fairly easy to see. And I'm going to go to this picture right here. This is, I think, my final picture in this presentation, and then I can kind of start with questions. But if you look at this picture right here, and you can point out the brightest star, then you know you're looking at Vega. And the other connection I want you to make here is the 3 brightest stars, which make up the summer triangle, which is something you can start to see as you go outside in the northern hemisphere, is the summer triangle. So the summer triangle is here, here. Nope. Let's try that again. And here. There we go. So there's your summer triangle. And you have Vega right here. You have Deneb, and then you have Altair, which is a part of Aquila. And I'm going to just go here and have these labeled. But I definitely have videos on, I think, each of these stars and the summer triangle. So feel free to check those videos out on all those topics. I go in depth about them and how to find them and what their characteristics are like. But what's interesting to me is that Vega is the brightest star, but it's not the biggest out of this trio. It's actually Deneb. And Deneb, we actually are not 100% sure on what the size of it is, because the difficulty with being able to measure it with the telescopes we have in orbit, it's simply one of those ones that's too bright for the sensors that we would use for our space telescope. So we actually have like a range of distance and size in which we think this particular star is. So I go in depth on that in the book. But that's kind of my picture walkthrough for you on how to find the 25 brightest stars. And honestly, taking 45 minutes to go over all of this doesn't really feel like enough. It's not something I feel like you can learn in 45 minutes or an hour. It's something that took me years to learn, and just recognizing it. But one of the reasons I do this channel is so it doesn't take you years to learn this stuff. It can take you a few days or weeks as you watch the videos and start to go outside and recognize what you're seeing. So I wanted to, in the last portion of this live stream, I wanted to share with you 2 of the tools that I use to help me out the most. So I am going to close this, and I'm going to open just a new tab, and I'm going to open up something called Stellarium, which is, I've only started using Stellarium in my videos. Because I've always tried to use real pictures and not animations, but I just can't deny the use that this fabulous planetarium that you can use that's online and accessible to everyone. And I particularly like using the online web version as opposed to the one you use to download onto your computer. I always use the web version whenever I'm teaching in my classes. And an important thing to realize is that you can always change where your location is. You can change what time things are happening. Like you can always fast forward time, which is really helpful when you're trying to teach patterns of the skies to your students. You can create an account with this and log your different things that you're seeing. Okay. You can look at the planets that are visible and when they would be visible at night. So that's very helpful. Okay. But this right here is set up for my screen. Okay. And you can turn constellations on. You can turn the mythological figures on like that, which is helpful to see. And then you can also turn off the atmosphere as if there were no light pollution. And then you can also turn off the landscape. So if I were to really want to see all 25 brightest stars, I can just kind of zoom out and do this full screen. Okay, so that is one way you can zoom in really far here, but you can also zoom out and get a chance to see the 25 brightest stars if it doesn't make you dizzy as I'm going through this. But so Stellarium is definitely a program that I use for my students. Okay. And the great thing about it is you can search for things. So if we were to search for, let's search for Sirius, the brightest star, all these things pop up. It talks to you about the artificial satellites, but we're looking for a double star. And I also like how it acknowledges some other information. So if I were to go back to Sirius, okay, it says double or multiple star. I appreciate that because Sirius we know is confirmed to be a double star, but it's possible there could be a triple star system. But when you click on it, it will zoom in and you can zoom in and see what as close as you can. Okay, that's a little trippy when you go that far. But yeah, it's a way to kind of look where everything is. And this is one way in which I often will change my location to somewhere like in Australia or South America to see what the particular stars look like from that area of the world. Because it does look different. And I get comments about that all the time. But the ability to be able to toggle things on and off, take off the landscape, and just zoom in, it gives you a chance to practice what you're seeing as well. So if you haven't started using Stellarium, you should. It's probably the best resource possible out there. So Stellarium is one, and you can also get it on your phone. Although I always tell my students, just put the phone down. You don't need the phone to look at the sky. Our ancient ancestors didn't need a phone to see what was out there, and neither do we. If you just spend time, take the time to go out and notice where these things are and what are the patterns. The final other resource I wanted to share with you is something that my students love in the classroom, and they always end up going to reference it. And it's called 100,000 Stars. And I'm pretty sure I have a video on this technology already, and I'm actually really scared one day this will go away because it's pretty old. It was first came out in 2012, so already 10 years old. But what I like about this simulation is that you can explore the closest stars to us, and you can actually kind of toggle things on and off. Like these are all the actual stars, but then you can turn that off and just look at the brightest ones. So I remember before this book was even a thought in my mind, I would come here and just go around and explore. So if I wanted to look at, let's look at Castor, I can click on Castor and it would take me there. It gives you information from Wikipedia on the side, which you can end up closing. But if you zoom out, it gives you that six star system. Okay. It's got 3 pairs of binary star systems. Okay. But this was just an example of, it made me want to ask more questions. Like, why is it like this? what are the colors of this star, which are hard to see from here unless you zoom in. Okay. And that's when I started to approach Erin, my colleague and art teacher in my school, to just help me visualize this stuff more, because it's not easy to visualize whatsoever. And if I were to center the camera on the sun, we can look at, say, let's look at Proxima Centauri, which is our closest star system, which is a red dwarf star. And I did see in the comments that we had a question about a red dwarf star. And a red dwarf star is the most common star that exists in the universe. They're much smaller than our sun, and they are cooler than our sun, which is why they have this reddish glow to them. And I go through all of this in the book, but it is classified as something called a main sequence star. And main sequence stars are stars that are balanced. They are stars that the gravity and fusion are balanced within the two. So gravity pulls all the mass inwards, but the pressure of fusion pushes everything outwards. And when these two forces are balanced, you have a main sequence star, but you can have a variety of main sequence stars. But this is Proxima Centauri, the closest star to us. But if we were to zoom out, it doesn't show the other ones. Oh, there it is. Let's see if I can click on Alpha Centauri. So yeah, here's Alpha Centauri, but it should also have another star there. It's kind of right there. But anyways, this is difficult in the sense that not everything in this program is exactly accurate. But it is from data from 2012. But again, this is something that you guys can explore on your own if you want to learn more about these different star systems. Here's one we talked about, Arcturus. You can zoom in. And you can tell when it's a giant star because it zooms in and it looks gigantic. But yeah, this is Arcturus from the Big Dipper. But so to me, this was like a really fascinating tool that you guys can use. And it's called 100,000 Stars. I have a video about it already. You can take the tour and it'll go through and show you all the things. But for me, I've used this for years now, and it's just such a great tool. And I still keep learning things from it. I'm always trying to find like new ones that I haven't clicked on yet. And in fact, I wish I can kind of come up with a list with all the ones that are in here, because I think that would be helpful. And there's other different types of programs you can use out there that are like this, but to me, this was kind of the original one that I started using to really help me learn about these systems. So we're almost at 12. I've talked way longer than I thought I would, but I do want to take some time to kind of address questions. So let me switch my screen and check out some of the questions. Ooh, there's a lot of questions. Okay, this is wonderful. When is the best time to see Scorpio? Summertime. So the summer months that are coming, that's when Scorpio is best to see. And I remember the first time I saw Scorpio. I walked out of the plane when I moved to Hawaii onto the tarmac, because that's what it's like when you land in Kona. You don't go through that tunnel, you land on the tarmac, and it was at night. And I remember seeing this giant hook in the sky, and I was like, oh, that's what it looks like. And I can't see it. I should be able to see it from my house, but there is a big mountain behind me that's covering a good portion of the southern sky, which makes it difficult to have a telescope, in the sense that, I have one of those telescopes that orients itself to look at exactly where you want, but it often has trouble calibrating because that mountain is in the way. So sometimes it's going to happen no matter where you are. But Scorpius is best seen in the summer months. Okay. What is my favorite type of object to look for in the sky? Planets, stars, constellations, Milky Way, or the moon? I think it depends on when you ask me that question. There's times I'm really into stars, but if the planets are out and I've got my telescope out, I love looking at Jupiter. I never get tired of it. Saturn's amazing to see. I like looking at deep sky objects, but I'm not great at using my telescope on how to do that yet, but that's something that I am learning to do over time. But all right. Yeah, constellations. I say I feel like I know all the constellations in the area, so I'm more focused in on stars. And that's where a lot of my content for my video is going to come in the next few months and probably even years is from this book. But I'll get back to constellations as well. I just know I need to make it to the southern hemisphere to really learn all the ones down there that I haven't really done yet. So Judge Maddie says, I learned most of my star pronunciations from the original Star Trek. Yes, I'm definitely a Trekkie. In fact, um, I dedicated this book to my parents who also wish to go where no one has gone before. We talk about that all the time. Like if we weren't, why can't we be in the society like what Star Trek is like so we can go and see what these are like? But I always tell my students that science fiction is the precursor to real science. And if you look at it, it happens. What we create in our minds eventually comes within our technology. And that's what's exciting about science for sure. All right, looking at so I had someone say that you can see Canopus from Miami, Florida. But yeah, I can imagine that be very low in the southern skies. That's what it was like in Hawaii. It was very low and it always just looked like multicolored. But I know that was the atmospheric disturbance of, changing, making the star look like it's changing colors. But I've seen it, but it's also like I don't feel like I'm the expert in that constellation or in that region of the sky. But eventually I'll get there. All right, some other questions or comments. I love that Marie said when authors use names in books like Pollux and Castor from the Hunger Games. Why am I not remembering those characters? Probably because I read it 10 years ago. Has it been that long? Maybe it hasn't been that long. But I also noticed like book characters in the Harry Potter books. A lot of them came from either constellations or star names. And I love that. I enjoy that as well. Do Auriga and Taurus share a star? They seem to be connected. Yes, they do. So I'm going to share my screen right now to share that. Yes, our so we're going to bounce to Stellarium. We're going to look at up Taurus. I don't know what I just did there. Let's try that again. But yes, Taurus, and if we were to turn these things on, but yes, they share this star right here. I do feel like I read recently that it's more like scientists more refer to it with Taurus as opposed to Auriga or Auriga. I've heard that constellation pronounced different ways too. But yeah, it does share a star. There's this one that shares a star, okay, between Taurus and Auriga, and then there's another one. I think it's called Alpheratz in Pegasus. I just want to Yep, here it is. Okay. Am I right? I am right. So Alpheratz, but it looks like the borderline here is that it's with Andromeda, but it's part of the great square of Pegasus. So that's the other one in which stars are shared between two constellations. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Get back to this and address some other questions. Will you address the Libra stars? They got very weird names like Zubin el Janubi means. I might have addressed this in a video that I have. If Abby, my moderator, if you can put up a link to the Libra constellation, I do address the names of those. And I always say like part of the reasons I make videos is so I can like remind myself what these things are like because it's not something I retain. But I know if I were to look at my constellation or my presentation of Libra, I can maybe quick find that out where those names came from because they are unique. And Libra is one I am going to share my screen now again because I did find what those names mean. So, present, share screen. Okay, so here is Libra. So Zubin el Janubi is an Arabic name that means southern claw. And then Zubin el Shamali is an Arabic name meaning northern claw. And I really hope I'm pronouncing those. Again, I'm not strong. I don't have a strong background in languages and world languages. So I try my best. And then Zubinel a crab means scorpion's claw. So the reason for, I do remember this, the reason for these unique names is because Libra used to be a part of Scorpius. They were not two separate constellations. They used to be together. So that's why the names of these stars do reference a connection to Scorpius because they used to be together. And Libra is one that it's not very easy to find, especially if you live in areas of light pollution. But if you can find Scorpius, okay, you know that Libra comes before it and Sagittarius comes after it. And I've seen multiple depictions of Libra, either in this orientation or another. I don't know how many orientations I have here. But yes, this is Libra is it took me years to find it. But it's like if you can figure out where all the other if you can figure out Scorpius, you can eventually find Libra. You just need to be in a dark sky area. All right. So back to some questions. I love how somebody asked what favorite stars are out there. I'd love to know that too because I feel like everybody has ones that they connect with for whatever type of reasons. They can make better star maps for the Gaia telescope data. Yes, the Gaia telescope data. I think there was Gaia data release number 3, and I think they recently had Gaia data release number 4. But I have used that database, but I don't want to say I'm great with it. I could learn how to use that better for sure. Can you tell how many major binaries are in the northern hemisphere? There's a lot of them, but just how many? I feel like I could only speak of the ones that I wrote about in this book. So I will let me upload a picture because I do have a picture. All right. Of the single star systems versus the multi-star systems. So I'm going to draw up that picture for you momentarily. Here we go. So once that loads, I can share that information with you. Oh, I can't get it to come up. There's an issue with the file. Of course there is. I know it's in the book. I do have it in the book. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not able to bring that one up. Maybe it's because I'm in live stream. Tim L says, your book is wonderful. It's something you can go back and refer to. Thank you so much. It's funny because it's been out for almost a month and I have gotten a few comments on what people think of the book, but I don't know what the majority of people think of it. So any kind of feedback or information you can give in any reviews, whether you purchase on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, really helps us out. It helps, just give some cred to the book and let other people know about what's it about. And more than anything, I hope you enjoy the illustrations in it because to me, those are like the gem of the book to be able to visualize these star systems in through artwork because that is so, so important to us. Oh, Castor and Pollux are the cameraman in the rebellion. That's correct. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. So I think I have addressed most of the questions. And I know that we are way past 12. I usually try to keep these to about an hour to respect people's time. But if you have any other questions, you can always leave them, whether you're watching this live stream, right now, or if you're watching later. I do try to respond to many comments. It gets harder as my channel grows. I know I'm really close to that 100,000 subscriber mark, which to me feels like a big deal. So I can't wait to celebrate that next milestone with you guys. Um, but yeah, I still see a couple questions coming through, so I'll try to address them as much as possible. Is the book available on Amazon? It is, yes. I think that's actually the best pricing as well. I found that you could purchase it as a Kindle book, but not in the United States. So perhaps you can do it in outside of the United States. I was really hoping to buy it as a Kindle, but it's not available to me that way. Do I have a video on lepus and lupus? I have one on lepus, but not lupus. That's coming. I don't know when, though. All right. I think I addressed most of the questions. One question was, do you know anything about Leo, Sun, Pisces, Moon, Pisces, and Zodiac? Well, Leo and Pisces are zodiac constellations, and all that means is that the sun passes through it. But one distinction I try to make on my channel is that the world of astrology and the world of astronomy are two different worlds. Years ago, 400 some years ago, they used to be kind of the same thing, where the way we would study the stars, many civilizations believe that would influence human behavior and human interactions and your life. But those two branches of science have diverged during the Enlightenment period, and many scientists believe astrology to be a pseudoscience. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to show you how astronomers study the stars and how astronomers find the constellations and how they study it that way. Astrology is not my thing, although I get called an astrologer a lot, but I think people confuse astrology and astronomy all the time, all the time. And I always tell my students in class, I'm not an astrologer. I do not tell the future. I can't tell fortunes, but I can tell you what you see when you look up in the night sky. That's what my purpose is here with this channel. So, in terms of Leo and Pisces, they are constellations in which the sun passes through. And those are important because we can use them to mark time. Okay. So I think I've addressed most of the questions, and we're a little past 12. So I just want to thank all of you for coming and being here, whether you're watching right now or in the future. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. This will be my last live stream on the book, and I'll probably pick this up again after my summer break as a teacher. I'll come in the fall, and we can focus on stars that you would see in the fall season as well as constellations. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of the brightest stars you would see in the fall. There's just a handful of them. So we'll probably focus on some of the summer ones that you'll see into the fall. But my goal is to do live streams with this book every kind of season, so you know what's coming and you know how you can see these different objects. And yeah, summer break is really important for teachers. It's how we rejuvenate, and for me, it's how I reinvent my instruction. So I'll take most of June off as a teacher. I have different vacations planned. But before I go on vacation, I usually go to the Jersey Shore. Um, I will try to get a couple videos out before I leave for my break, just because it's been a while since I've really put videos out. And most of that is because I've been focusing on promotion of the book, as well as this whole past year, I've just been writing and editing, and it's been a journey for sure. But I'm really glad you guys are here with me and you are enjoying the book. And again, if you can leave reviews, that would be really, really helpful for me as well. So, I want to thank you guys all for coming and share what you know about the sky with others, as well as if you enjoy the book, share it and let other people know. And yeah, so we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you again, hopefully, for a live stream more towards the fall season, either in August or September. So, yes, hopefully. And yes, I hopefully will get to 100,000 subscribers very soon. I was really hoping to do it in the school year because I was going to celebrate with my classes, but we didn't quite reach it. But this is my kind of low season. My peak season is during the winter. That's when I get the most views. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm so happy you were here. Thanks for joining with me, or thanks for joining me. And leave any other questions you have. I hope to address them in the future. Thank you so much and take care. Keep looking up, guys.